Welcome to Young Money with Tracy Bissett, the advice show for young millionaires in the making. It's time for some $1 Million Straight Talk with Tracy, President and Chief Financial Fitness Trainer at Bissett Financial Fitness. Each week, Tracy's going to tell you what you need to know now at the beginning of your earning curve. Basic and advanced financial concepts made clear, healthy money habits and the missteps to avoid, and all the stuff that you can do to set yourself up for a future of fantastic financial freedom. Ready to lace up and start this week's financial fitness training? Let's do it, Tracy.
Welcome to the Young Money Podcast. So happy today. We've got such a special guest, Sheena Russell. Welcome, Sheena.
Thank you. Hi.
Well, it's great to have you.
Yeah,
and so
thanks.
for all of you listening, Sheena was born and raised in rural PEI, so Prince Edward Island, and now lives in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. She is the founder and CEO of Made with Local, a snack foods company based out of Nova Scotia, Canada. Their nourishing foods are handmade at social enterprises using the best Canadian ingredients, and they're building a community linking farmers and social enterprise bakeries with plans to replicate their model in other parts of the country. So welcome again, Sheena.
Thank you.
So we met earlier this year in March, and we're part of a really special group called She-EO. And I'm an activator in that group, which means I invest some money into women-led ventures. And the part I love the most is voting for them. And so you were one of the selected 7 ventures that won funds this year. And so I imagine that was very exciting for you, and congratulations again.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. It was a complete surprise. I was shocked every step of the way. So yeah, it was a huge opportunity, and it totally came out of nowhere, it felt. So yeah, that made it that much more exciting.
That's fantastic. And so I've got connections to where you come from and where you live now. My brother lives in Charlottetown, and I grew up in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and most of my family is in Dartmouth, actually. So right where you are.
That's awesome.
So I'd love it if you can start by telling the listeners a little bit more about your business and kind of how you got started with it.
Yeah, so Made with Local is about 6 years old now. We started back in 2012. I was just a friend and I who thought it would be fun to spice up our lives. We were working both for the government at the time, office jobs. We thought it would be fun to go do something on the weekends that was more in line with our personal passions, and that was making yummy snacks, healthy snacks, bringing them to the farmers market on Saturdays in our community, and just, stretching our creative muscles a little bit. So really early on, I realized how exciting entrepreneurship was, because it wasn't something that was ever on my radar prior to that. So yeah, I kind of got bitten by the bug, like really early on, and said, okay, wow, this is really exciting. And I loved the concept of building a brand and product and engaging with customers. And it was just a really exciting time. So in those early days, it was, the classic side hustle, evenings and weekends. And then it evolved over time to be something that I thought, you know what, I can do this. I can dive in and turn this into a real profitable thing. And that was 3 years ago that I quit that day job and decided to go full time with Made with Local.
Well, that's fantastic. And certainly on the show, we talk a lot about side hustles. So we've had Jeet Banerjee on talking to us about how you prepare for a side hustle. And Leanna Hawkins of the book Young, Fun, and Financially Free talking about how you can supplement your income by doing some side hustles and just bring in a little extra income. So I think that's great. And when you're starting in your own venture, it's a good way to test it out and see if it's viable, see if you like it. It's not for everybody. So you could have quickly found out in 6 months, I hate this. I like having my steady paycheck, and I don't want to take the risk, or this is just too much work. I actually work way more than I do at my other job.
Yeah, well, and that was the case. All of those things were true, but I still loved it, right? Like all of the things about what you just said, it was more work, it was less money, it was stressful, but I just couldn't stop. There was just everything in me that was pulling me towards this being my path. So yeah, despite all that, here I am.
So it's probably your calling, and you feel fulfilled by it.
Absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit more about your products. And from my recollection, you employ or work with a lot of people around the province.
Yeah, so in the earliest days, we were baking. Our kind of like marquee product is our real food bars, and I was baking them all myself, packaging, like delivering the whole kit and caboodle was done in house. But I got pregnant with my daughter by surprise in 2014, and that led me to need to find some help. So in 2014, we were introduced to an amazing organization here in Nova Scotia called the Flower Cart Group, and they are a social enterprise in rural Nova Scotia that employs folks in that rural community who are living with barriers to mainstream employment in a bakery, in a little awesome co-packing kitchen. So they said, "Hey, do you by chance need some help?" And I said, "Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, I need help. Please help me." So that was the real, like, I almost envisioned that as being like the rebirth of the business. I guess no pun intended with Talk the Pregnancy Talk, but it was really a huge pivotal, Oprah calls it the aha moment, when I was like, oh my God, this is a business that is, unheard of, thinking of bringing farm fresh ingredients into these community-based social enterprise production kitchens and creating food that like builds this amazing network that's like in a really grassroots level. So that was the beginning of a super beautiful relationship, and the Flower Cart is still our number one production facility. So they make our real food bars for us, and we have another facility here in Dartmouth, which is also a social enterprise called Dask Industries.
Absolutely, I know that group as well.
Yeah, they're so amazing, and they make our loaded oats, which is our instant oatmeal, and our real food bar mix, which is a really exciting product that allows you to make your own made with local bars at home. So we have two main production facilities, and we're in the early stages of rolling out into a third social enterprise production kitchen here in Halifax. So in total, there's about north of 100 people who are touching and working with made with local products every day, who otherwise, would be pretty challenged to find employment in the mainstream workforce. So that feels pretty amazing.
That is fantastic. And so you've had a lot of success to date. How would you say it came to be, and kind of how you arrived at that?
Oh my goodness, that's such a big question.
I know. And if you think about maybe some key themes or success factors that have kind of been prevalent in your life that kind of consistently show up and help you go on to the next thing.
One thing that I can say is absolutely a theme is that I have been like gifted from the universe, the people, like really, really smart, excited, fearless people to come in and swoop in and help me when I'm in over my head. Honestly, like I had a business coach come into my life right when I was on that kind of quasi maternity leave with my daughter, when I was like really getting ready to dive into the business. And she changed the trajectory of my business and helped me build so much confidence as an entrepreneur. And that I don't know that I would have been able to swing it if it weren't for her. And that Made with Local is a very small company. It's really only me and one other person internally. So the other person is a gal named Christine Elliott Grace, and she is an absolute gift. And she came kind of out of nowhere as well. So I've been so fortunate to be surrounded by people who've just come in at the perfect time with the perfect skill set and help us level up. So I would say that's been, the biggest, if I could put my finger on a thing, it's people.
I would venture to say that it comes from a few things that you're doing. So one, you must be really likable, because people don't help people who are not likable and kind, and they're really excited by your passion for your business. So they want to help you. And then you must be putting it out there, some vibes that kind of say, I'm open for assistance, I'm open for help, and love for anybody who's interested to connect with me and kind of bring that forward, which is really important, because a lot of people do need help at times, but they're kind of shut down to they need to do it all on their own, or they think they need to figure out the answers all on their own and don't want to appear like they have any weaknesses or things that they don't know. But by you being open to that and obviously being a nice, good person, that's all kind of coming together and the universe is taking care of you.
Yeah. And I totally, I don't know where this like quote or idea is from, but I've heard it, before. And I was like, yep, that's me, is that, successful entrepreneurs or successful business people or just smart people in general tend to, their secret is that they surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so true, because it's like, oh my God, like what a way, like how, you never stop learning as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. You're just in this like constant state of learnings and mistakes and all that jazz. But that's 100%, that's been a theme for me for sure. And to say, that coach came to me out of like literally nowhere. And it was the craziest thing how we even met in 2015. And then Christine came along in 2016. And my 2017 gift was absolutely the CEO community. Like I mentioned, like right off the bat, it was something that like I really liked, I absolutely was not even like, it wasn't, I applied, but like then literally.
Did someone encourage you to apply though in the first place?
Yeah. So there's a couple of women in the Halifax business community like sent me like little email nudges saying, hey Sheena, like you should totally apply for this. And I even said to Vicky Saunders, who's the founder of SheEO, when we first met, I said like probably the only real reason that I shouldn't say the only reason, but I was in this really crummy space of like business award and funding fatigue right around the time the SheEO stuff popped up, because I felt like all I'd been doing is filling in like nomination requests for this, that, and the other prize that we like never won. And I was like, you know what, why am I doing this? Like, why am I spending so much energy to fill in these like arduous, brutal prize nomination forms, when really it's crickets every time. And like, what am I trying to prove to myself? I was kind of having this like reckoning, being like, why am I doing this? And then the SheEO one came along and I got a couple of nudges from friends and I looked at the application and it was beautiful and short and intuitive and like really thoughtful questions. And I was like, oh, this is different. Like, it's a 1 in a billion chance that I would ever get it. But I was like, it's concise and it's thoughtful and this is my jam. So I filled it in. And then when I first got the call, about us being in the top 25, I like didn't even know it was happening at all. I was like, excuse me, what? But anyway, all that to say is that, SheEO has been another huge, perfect example of like me needing support at a particular time and it coming in big time.
I think it's really important for those who work with entrepreneurs or those who just see them out there to do those nudges like you received. And I know I've nudged quite a few people and people put their applications in as well. But sometimes you need someone else to say, you are a good candidate. You should be applying. You should put yourself in that competition because you do measure up and you are as equal a candidate as somebody else. And so sometimes you need that little help to see how you fit.
Absolutely. And I kind of subscribe to the rule of 3 sometimes. Like if I see or hear of something 3 times and it's like on my radar, I'm like, okay, there's more than a poke, it's a push.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into signing up or applying for SheEO. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Hello, Young Money listeners. You know that I love to talk about cash flow on the show. This episode of Young Money, featuring a fantastic entrepreneur, is sponsored by the masterclass, Can I Afford It? How to be certain of what you can and can't afford in your business in 5 minutes or less every time. This training has been specifically designed for entrepreneurs with sales in the 6 to 7 figure range to provide the 5 steps to cash flow clarity. If you are an entrepreneur with sales at these levels and want to make powerful money decisions, you do not want to miss this important masterclass. Head over to visitfinancialfitness.com/afford to register now. Stop asking yourself the question, can I afford it? And so if you think about your biggest turning point or revelation in your life from a financial perspective, what comes to mind?
Turning point was definitely like good or bad. I mean, it was just a big leap was going in full time with the business. That was something, I was leaving a very comfortable government job, pension, benefits, all that jazz, to a very, very young business at that point. Like really, we had only started working with our very first like small chain of grocery stores here in the East Coast. So it was very early days, but I'm like so grateful for my husband who was like, yeah, you got to do it. And he, gave me the space to take the leap. And that was definitely one of the biggest the biggest financial journeys that I've ever really been on. Because up until that point, I've always worked like really hard, even when I was a kid. You know, I had my first job when I was like 8, you know, picking strawberries in PEI, and then working at like a little diner and babysitting. And I just have always had like a job or two, even all the way through university. So I've always been a very hard worker, always paid my way through things on my own. And then all of a sudden I was like, probably not going to have much of an income for a while, you know, and didn't really know how that was going to feel. So that was scary, like on paper, but I just have known deep in my gut that like it was going to be okay. So maybe I'm just like crazy. But so far it's panning out, you know, 3 years later, we're still rocking it. So yeah.
Well, and expanding too. So
big time. Yeah.
So that's great. And so if you think about your biggest financial challenge, whether it's in the business or earlier or something you wished you known earlier in your life, what do you think about?
I'll go with a business financial challenge because that's like something that I feel like I live in more like day to day versus personal, but cash flow, right? Cash flow in a product-based business where you carry a lot of inventory and you're trying to just navigate the whole world of keeping things streamlined. And it's just, it's heavy. So again,
I love talking about cash flow. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I teach part-time. I teach part-time at Centennial College and wrote my career as a banker.
Wow.
I'm always about cash flow. So for those who are listening who maybe aren't quite sure what cash flow means, it's money that comes in and money that goes out, but it's actual money, not credit, not anything else. It's actual cash that would hit your account. So if we've got some students listening or some newly employed people, you're probably not going to have enough money in one paycheck to cover your rent. So to manage your cash flow, you have to keep usually a huge portion of each one of your paychecks to make that rent payment on the first. And so are you going to have enough cash available on the day those payments are due? And so certainly in a business, as you mentioned, with a product foundation, and certainly you're tying up a lot of money in your inventory, and you have to sink a lot of money into it before you may be getting the money back before you're selling it.
Absolutely. And the bigger that we get, you know, we're doing bigger deals with large grocery chains and they don't pay for a month or two. So it's really, you're floating, you're trying, it's pretty intense at times. But again, to go back to the CEO thing, that's been so helpful. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's been like the number one kind of learning curve, I think, in the business, is just like trying to figure out how to scale as quickly. So to grow the company as quickly as we've been growing and still navigate having like actual cash money in the bank and not just lots of invoices that are out there waiting to be paid. So that's been the biggest challenge.
That's a pretty common one, I would say, for all entrepreneurs and all businesses generally, unless they're really well established and they've built up a huge cushion of cash flow. It generally is a concern and something you have to manage daily, as well as you're growing. Growing takes money.
It does.
You mentioned if you're sitting with invoices but no cash, like to actually make more real food bars, you need more money to be able to buy the ingredients, get the people to make it, pay those people, because they're not going to come back to make them next week if you don't pay them on time.
Yeah. And well, one thing that we make a point to do as well is that we pay all of our ingredient suppliers, like our local farmers and food producer ingredient suppliers, like as quickly as we absolutely can. So a lot of them, we pay them like cash, like on delivery for their ingredients, because they're so small and we're such a big account for them, you know, like we try and help them out with their cash flow as much as possible. And that's something that, you know, could be argued as not being the most ideal business practice from most business owners, but that is part of what makes us different, you know, that we try and really take care of the community that's around us. And sometimes that means, you know, making those like little concessions for some suppliers. So anyway,
and at times probably it's a sacrifice.
Yeah. But, and I do find comfort in knowing that this is something that like all businesses who are growing quickly go through. You know, there's definitely like other business finance catastrophes that happen where it is like the red alarm going off, but this is just such a typical growing pain for businesses. And I'm like, okay, it sucks. It's stressful, but it's going to be okay. You know, we're going to make it through. And I have a great support system in terms of like our bankers, and we work with BDC, and there's a lot of great funding organizations out here on the East Coast and different levels of government. So we've been good.
Well, that's a huge lesson you've learned, and it is a daily thing to manage. So it sounds like you've got it under control, but something you'll continue to work on as the numbers keep getting bigger.
Absolutely.
And if you think about who inspires you from a financial standpoint, is there someone in your life or someone out there kind of as a guru or a celebrity?
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know about, I don't really follow any celebrity finance people. Finance is not my deep passion, but I will kind of give you a silly response to that and say, honestly, my financial inspiration is my husband, because he and I are complete polar opposites when it comes to, I hear
that one a lot, actually. So it's not really a silly response, because it's whoever in your life is helping you see more and helping you to be able to do things differently because they know things maybe you don't know.
Absolutely. And that's 100% the case for him. He's savvy, and he's really great at looking into the future and being innovative about the ways that we as a family invest. And he's somebody who I definitely lean on for financial education. I'm so what does that acronym mean that I've never heard before? Or, how does that, even when it comes to different interest rates, and he's got a pretty deep level of knowledge on how to navigate the world of finance and investment and savings. So he definitely inspires me when it comes to talking money.
Well, that's great. And certainly, personal finance and business finance is full of acronyms. So,
oh my goodness, yes,
you are not alone. And as a banker, you constantly had to remind yourself not to be using them when you're talking with clients, because you need to speak a common language and make people feel as comfortable as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I know you guys have exciting growth plans. And so why don't you let the listeners know what you're working on now, where you're expanding, and so we can get a little bit more flavor for what the future holds for Made for Local.
Yeah, so we are expanding like crazy into Ontario. It is such exciting times. We've rolled out our real food bars into all of the Whole Foods markets in Ontario, which has been such an incredible opportunity for us. And most recently, really as of early July, we've also rolled our bars into 61 Sobeys locations in Ontario. We have many dozens new independent retailers in Quebec and Ontario as well. And we're just kind of growing like a bad weed. It's very, very exciting. And the goal is to build up enough of a customer base in Ontario so that we can actually replicate our model that we've created out here on the East Coast in Ontario somewhere. So creating an Ontario-based production hub that will have us working with an Ontario-based social enterprise production kitchen and using Ontario-based ingredients. So I'm just so excited about that. And we're just working our butts off to make the numbers work and get us up into that kind of critical mass point in Ontario before we can roll over into a new production hub. So that's kind of what's on the 12 to 24 month plan for us.
That's super exciting. And I know I've seen your products in the store, because I do shop at Sobeys. That's my go-to grocery store. So for people who are listening, who are really excited about what you're doing, they love the social enterprise aspect, they love the local ingredient aspect, how could they help you spread the word after listening to the podcast? What could they do?
Honestly, my favorite way of having folks support me is good old-fashioned word of mouth. Go buy a bar, buy two, have one for yourself, give one to a friend that you know would love it. It sounds very, very hokey and old school, but man.
That's how people make decisions, though. They try it, and if they like something, they buy it. And they tell 3 friends.
Absolutely. And it's real life stuff. It's one thing to see something, our packaging is beautiful and our branding is beautiful and all that, but beneath all of that beautiful branding, the product is just also so awesome too, right? So it's really one of those things that I think trying it, tasting it is it really kind of makes it all come together. So that would be my ask. Number one ask is to go find them, buy one, give one to a friend. Or if you're not near a retailer, just follow us on social, because we're also having a lot of fun on Instagram and Facebook. We're just at Made with Local on both of those platforms. And that would also be amazing, because we're excited to grow our community outside of the little East Coast.
Yeah, and people will definitely love it. And then the more you grow, then you can keep moving across Canada for the rest.
Yeah, and we also ship from our online shop anywhere in Canada. So just on our website, www.madewithlocal.ca, you can go on there and find all of our goodies, and we'll send them right to your door. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sheena. It's great.
Thank you.
I've really loved learning more about Made with Local, hearing your story, particularly the aspect of the labor that you're employing and it being a social enterprise. I think that it really shows how much you care about the community, even when you're talking about the cash flow, making sure you pay your local suppliers very promptly because you know that they have to manage their cash flow as well. And so I just think that's all fantastic. What I heard when you were telling us some of your stories about things that have happened to you, like some of the key success factors I took away that have kind of put you and brought you to where you are right now. The first one, having faith and kind of these gifts coming to you from the universe that smart, fearless people are coming to you to help you when you need the help. And so I think that's all around you putting it out there, being open to feedback and just letting it happen naturally. 2, I think you must be very fearless because you started the business, you went fully into it and it's going well, but you do have to be a little bit fearless to do that. And then along with that, I would say number 3 is the ability and the confidence to take a calculated risk. Like I'm sure when you were making that decision, you really thought through, how was I going to do it? And yeah, I think the risk is acceptable. And certainly having your husband as support, having his confidence, having his financial savvy and just his ability to help you sort things out from a financial perspective was probably really key.
Absolutely.
And so I love the growth plans that you have, and certainly young millionaires in the making who are listening out there, try the product today. Go to Sobeys, go to Whole Foods, look for Made with Local, buy them, share them with your friends. And if you want to have some fun, follow Made with Local on social media.
That sounds great.
Yes. So thank you so much, Sheena.
Thank you, Tracy. This is awesome.
So there you have it, listeners. Sheena Russell, Made with Local, out of the East Coast, and really supporting communities and labor across the country through the social enterprises that she's working with, and really taking Canada by storm. So until next time, take good care and stay financially fit.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. To all you millionaires in the making out there, if you love this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes to keep your financial fitness training going. Oh, and leave us a review. And be sure to visit 2 S's, 2 T's, financialfitness.com to take your free financial fitness assessment. Find out how financially fit you really are. See you next week, young millionaires to be.